Welcome, our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness down the river of tranquility to fill the lake of life with love.
And welcome, our fellow lovers of love out there. And you know what? I forgot to check something, Lovey. So let's check this before I... yeah, okay. That's good. It's been a crazy week around here. Anyway, good evening, our fellow lovers of love, and welcome to another thought-provoking episode of the Late Night Love, where we dive deep into life's most pressing issues. This week, we're tackling an array of challenges across mental health, relationships, parenting, and work. So tune in for compassionate advice, insightful discussions, and practical solutions to help you manage these everyday struggles. Whether you're dealing with personal issues or seeking ways to improve your relationships and work life, we've got you covered. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification thingy or whatever, is so you never miss an episode. And there's lots and lots of episodes to go back and listen to. You can go to latenightLove.us and see the questions that we answer, so you can actually kind of narrow down what you want. All right, so let's navigate life's challenges together, one conversation at a time. And there was an interesting thing going around, another one of these clips. We're only going to listen to the first part of it. We're only going to see kind of the first part of this, because her reaction is, there's nothing wrong with the reaction, but I didn't have time to go look for the original one. So the original TikTok, because we actually do have a TikTok,
Yes, I know, you told me.
But I keep forgetting to do things with it. In the last couple of weeks, I've been so busy that anyway. So I probably should have waited until after July to have been done to start in retrospect. But anyway, so we're going to talk about, why can't husbands have a bad day, right, without getting kind of judged for it. And it's an interesting question, though I'm not entirely sure it's entirely fair, but as always, these things are often more complicated than we like to give them. So anyway, here, we'll cover this. We'll be right back. Where's my mouse?
Husband says his day was hard, but he didn't do anything with the toddler next to him all day. Listen, everyone is allowed to have hard days.
So I'm going to stop that one and leave it at that, because what's the point, right? Because he had a hard day, so it doesn't count because he didn't have a toddler next to him all day. I've had both, right? And you don't compare the two, right? It's like comparing a roofer with someone who works in, say, the White House, right? Maybe you're just some routine staffer, but it's still the White House, right? Now it's 110 out, long day, stuff keeps breaking, things happening, not even necessary. Yeah, it's a long day, stressful day at the White House or something, lots of stress. What? So if you don't have a toddler following you somehow, and I get the stress of being a homemaker, having to raise children and toddlers, and don't compare these two things. Stop, resist the urge to make these comparisons. Why do you want to live life being a victim of life? I don't get it. That's what I don't get, is we seem to have a huge chunk of people these days. I'm not even going to pick on a generation in this case, but we have a huge chunk of people who seem to want to be victims, and they will find a way to turn themselves into a victim. Well, my husband thought he had a bad day. Well, I had a toddler chasing me all day. Well, personally, I love the laughter of a toddler. And yeah, sometimes it's annoying, and they're extra clingy when you have to get things done and you got other things to do, and you have your own bad days. But it doesn't mean your partner doesn't have their own bad days, and you shouldn't honor those. I don't get why you'd have this, aggressive cutting of the of the vegetables because your husband's complaining that he had a bad day. Yeah, he had a bad day. Let him have a bad day. Isn't that what you're there for? to comfort him when he's had a bad day, even if yours wasn't necessarily, peaches and cream and sunlight. It, I don't get it. I don't understand. But
I'm trying to remember if I ever just you complained about a bad day and I didn't respond well enough.
well, the only time that happens is when we're both having bad days at the same time, and we have a strategy for that. Right? We developed a strategy for that one. So, well, all right, let's just everybody, you're on your own that day. Just leave the other person alone. You still be civil and polite, and I think it helps getting through it because you're kind of honored. You're both kind of honored that, okay, I have the right to have a bad day, and even at the same time as the other person. You don't, I'm not the one who has to sacrifice because I'm grumpy today, and the other person's grumpy at the same time. I'm not the one who has to sacrifice. We both have to sacrifice relatively equally. That's kind of cool. And so I don't know. I just don't understand why people want to be victims, is essentially my whole point of that whole thing. She's literally set herself out to be a victim.
It's almost like there's a competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're either keeping score, or they're wanting to be a victim. And neither one of those is good for you personally or your relationship. I'm actually going to put this over here so I don't bang it on the table all the time. Okay. So we've got a couple life questions to start out with. And this first one's actually for you. So I'm going to ask you this one, and I have my own stuff to talk about, but we're going to ask it for you. So what motivated you to be open about your mental illness? In this particular case, it was bipolar disorder.
Because I have other things in my life that I share, and it has helped people. So I thought with mental illness, there's still a stigma. If I was, 30 years ago when I was first diagnosed. So if I talked about it, I tried to normalize it, and it has become more normalized nowadays.
Yeah. As in the past, all you saw was people on their bad days. All you saw was people, right, when they were having their worst days. That's the only time you saw people with bipolar. Otherwise than that, they're just normal human beings. And that's the point. Right. And so if you can say, oh, well, it's their bad days, and if they're working hard to manage those bad days are not as severe and less often, but these still happen. But unless they're having that bad day, they're just like the rest of you, right? You're no different than anybody else. So I think for me, that's the point. That's why I choose to, even though I don't talk openly about it. I mean, I do and don't. I don't bring it up all the time. It's not my sword, but I spent a lifetime of anxiety disorder. And I truly didn't even understand what that actually meant until the first time I sat down in TV cameras and was comfortable. And that's the oddest thing I ever experienced. I had become strong enough where I could sit down where I could actually take the risk and sit down in front of TV cameras. And then I sat down in front of TV cameras, and I was actually not, for the first time that I can actually remember, didn't have any anxiety, felt comfortable. And I still get that feeling when I sit down in front of those TV cameras. And now it's my show. Then I was just a guest, and now it's my show. And so I don't get nervous when the light's on. I still get nervous, oddly enough, when I'm not going live. It's very bizarre. I get over it relatively quickly, but if I'm just recording and not being live, that's why I go live on almost everything I do, by the way. It's just easier. I don't have any anxiety with it. So, all right, I'll just go live. You should see how long it takes me to record like a 15-second clip or something. Oh my God. I do so many takes because I'm never happy. But yeah, when I'm live, you've got to just deal with what is. And I'm essentially free. And part of that is you want to, people who are in their journey or who are just starting their journey need to know that there is better days ahead if you work hard. No one's promising you nothing without working hard. You need to have that hard work, because it doesn't happen by itself. But it's people need to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. That if you work hard and focus on yourself and become the best you can be, you have a bright future. Doesn't mean you know what that future looks like, but you have a bright future. Okay, what's next?
I'm a 17-year-old male who feels like I'm sort of emotionally, spiritually, and mentally depressed, bored, and unhappy. Just with feeling that society and people are too obsessed with the digital media, phones, and more. Is this normal? How could I cure this illness?
Okay, there's two parts of it. Yes, it's perfectly normal for a 17-year-old boy to feel emotionally, spiritually, and mentally depressed, bored and unhappy. My suspicion is you lack a direction in your life, and that has left you drifting. And so part of that is you latch on to the problems that you see in society. Other people are, overly focused on social media and digital media and whatnot. But my point is, that doesn't matter what other people are focused on. You have to figure out what you want to be focused on. You can't change the world. You can only change you. And if you don't want to interact in the world that way, I perfectly support it. Just do it with a purpose. What do you want to do? If I had you sitting here talking to me, I wouldn't be asking about what's wrong with the world. I'd be asking, what do you like to do? And I know the first question would be, I don't know. Say, all right, if you could do anything, money, no object, what would it be? What would be the one thing that your heart desired? You have something. And if you don't, that's depression and you need to see a professional. If you can't have something that, money, no object, where would you live? What would you do? If you won $1 billion and you could walk off and live whatever life you wanted to live, what would you do? Where would you look to live? Build that from there. Now, of course, it's unrealistic. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to get you dreaming again. You'll work down to a realistic dream. Or maybe that is a realistic dream for you. All you have to do is focus. Maybe you're an essentially bright individual, but because sometimes bright individuals also have the other side, yin and yang, of having to deal with depression. So anyway, yes, it's perfectly normal. You cure the illness by stop focusing on other people, focusing on yourself. And if you can't find a dream, even a completely ludicrous one, see a professional, because you are dealing with real depression, would be my guess. But it's perfectly normal for 17-year-olds to feel that way. They feel directionless. They got their adulthood coming at them like a freight train. And I don't know what I want to do with my life. Yeah, you're going to feel directionless and lost. It's okay. Half the male population probably feels that way at any one time. At 17-year-old male population. Yes. Yeah. You're not even close to alone. You're pretty good at expressing it. So that's a start. It's better than most of them. So you're ahead of the game. That's my pep talk for you.
Right.
Yeah. You think so?
Poor thing.
Yeah, no, it's hard. 17-year-olds are hard. And they have, especially if you don't have something that's naturally singing to you at that point, right? If you don't have a hobby, if you haven't found your thing, your niche, it is so difficult. Okay, so what's next?
Well, we got relationship questions.
All right.
I always said if I'd leave this cheated on, so why haven't I?
Okay. I don't know. Why haven't you? Probably because you're afraid of being alone is the most
Mm.
common answer. It may be financial. You don't want to take the financial hit, but the most common answer, you're afraid of being alone. That's the simplest thing. The question for you to answer is, why is being alone worse than being not cared for properly? Because you are essentially alone at that point.
Yeah. Well,
Well, and, there are exceptions to the rule, right? And
maybe he wants to try counseling.
well, like I said, there might be exceptions to the rule, but she's asking why she has violated her own personal code of ethics. And now maybe she has violated her own personal code of ethics somewhere, realize she's not directly responsible for it, but has a role to play in the degrading of the relationship, shall we say?
No, this is me, male 35.
Oh, well, it actually doesn't matter either way. It's the answer is the same. Regardless of regardless of what your relationship makeup is, quite frankly, the answer is always going to be the same. This question is, why am I not following through on my own? And again, the same answer is because you're afraid of being alone. You're more afraid of being alone than of being hurt. So, and maybe you are part of the reason, right? Doesn't change either. Maybe you're part of the reason. Maybe you've been neglectful in your relationship, and so you have a role to play in the disintegration of the trust and and so that's why you're not willing to. You can look in the mirror and say, it wasn't just her, or it wasn't just him, or it wasn't just them. It was I had my role to play in creating these conditions where that was a possibility. If you make your partner unhappy for long enough, these kind of things become a possibility, right? I'm not saying that's what happened. I have no clue. I'm just saying that might be one reason why you don't pull the trigger on being and ending the relationship, because you have as much responsibility as the other one, or at least some. Maybe not as much, but at least some. And maybe I pushed them to it because I haven't been paying attention to her for 3 years. I haven't been my best self, or I've been overly focused on work. I've been working 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week for 3 years and completely ignored the relationship. And yeah, of course, she finally went out and found someone who would give her some attention. Of course they would. So you feel guilty for that. So you're willing to accept, rather than maybe she has mentioned over the course of those times that, hey, I need more attention, and you haven't given it to her. Or you bought her jewelry or remodeled the kitchen, or you did things for her, but you didn't do the one thing she actually needed, and that was your time. Or could be something completely different. It's not enough to know. But the actual question is, why am I not living up to my own personal code of ethics? It's because you violated them somewhere. It's usually, or you're afraid of being alone, which is the most basic answer. Okay.
My husband didn't get me a birthday present despite reminders, and I am so disappointed and angry. Is this a breakup level offense?
No, really? Is a birthday present really a breakup level offense?
Well, it's not the present. It's that he forgot, and after she reminded him, and she was really looking forward to her special day.
Okay, you guys realize that sometimes that pressure you put is actually counterproductive. Maybe he didn't have the money for what she wanted. Maybe he's a bit autistic and doesn't remember birthdays. She knows. Here's the thing. If your partner accepting someone who you love means accepting their faults. And if you know this person has trouble remember birthdays, and my guessing is it's not just yours, he forgets, right? Then you are going to have to accept that as part of who they are or not, right? My guess is you accepted that long time ago. It's just this particular, for whatever reason, a big birthday, an emotional birthday. You wanted something different. Take care of yourself. Just, hey, can I go buy myself my birthday present? Oh, yeah, sure, please. And you can go buy yourself your birthday present and wrap it up and give it to yourself on your birthday. I know it's not as romantic, but guess what? You're never going to get that romantic thing out of him on your birthday like that. It's not going to happen. You will get it other times, right? It's not that he doesn't show you he loves you, is my guess. You just wanted it for whatever reason. You wanted it this one particular time. And it's one of those people who doesn't remember dates. It's something I can sympathize with. These days, it's just I hit dates and what the heck happened? How did it get to be this date already? I thought it was 2 months ago still. I have no idea what month I'm in anymore. I have no idea. I am all confused about when the heck I am. Yeah. Don't even try to get me to think about what year it is. Oh, good Lord.
24, babe.
Yeah, I know, but you know how many that it makes my youngest child, which means you know how old that makes my oldest child, which means you know how much old that makes me. How did this happen? See, that's why some of us don't like birthdays, man. It's like the clock ticking. No, screw that. I don't need the clock ticking. No, I just am terrible with dates. I never know what day it is, let alone what day I'm supposed to remember. I'm lucky to remember my own birthday. I also don't care. You could be running into something like that. So I'm somewhat sympathetic to the husband here.
Yes, I can tell.
So, I kind of get it, but really, in the grand scheme of things, just buy yourself a present. Just buy yourself the present you want, and look for his love language in other places. It's my suggestion.
It's there. His love language is there.
It's there. It's just not on your birthday. And yeah, it's disappointing, but it's only disappointing because you placed an expectation on it. If you had my suspicion is you reminded him constantly because you knew he doesn't remember birthdays for whatever reason. And so you put an unrealistic expectation on it, and now you're disappointed, which is understandable. So it's just one of those quirks in a relationship that people either accept or you don't, right? You either accept the flaws of the person you love or you don't, because that kind of thing doesn't get better. Even with modern technology where you could literally set reminders on your phone, you're going to say, oh yeah, okay, I need to do that. And then he's going to forget. It's not that he doesn't love you. It's not that he doesn't care. It just is what it is. All right, what's next?
I met the perfect girl, but the sex is horrible. Can we make it work? Apparently she's a cold fish. She just kind of lays there.
Well, can you make it work? Sure, I suppose. Sex is not everything, especially as your relationship and bodies mature. So if everything else is perfect and all it is, yes. Because there may come a time where she becomes willing to express herself more fully. My guess is she's repressing herself. Something, she learned at some point sex was icky. She's doing it because, yeah. And so you give her the freedom to be herself and you love her despite that. She'll have the opportunity to feel free to open up.
She will.
Or not. But the question is, how important is that really?
Really? Yeah. In the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, you've got 100 things on on the list of relationship needs? Where does that fall? What percentage of your relationship is that gonna?
Well, mid
20s.
mid 20s. It seems pretty intense at the moment.
Yeah, but in 10 years, you're gonna start having bad backs and bad knees, and so I don't know. And maybe she's just inexperienced. That's actually a vastly different thing. Inexperienced and shy. And yeah, again, so I personally would not. That would not be a deal breaker for me, but is what it is. That's an individual thing. But really, everything else is great, but that's going to be the thing. Seems kind of shallow, doesn't it? When you put it that way.
Well, yeah.
Seems a little shallow to me.
Shallow, yeah.
Seems a little shallow to me. Okay, what's next?
All right. My son told my husband, his father, how he really feels about him. How come I patch my family up, if at all? The son told his father he felt he was too hard on him as a child growing up, and he resents it.
Yeah, so he got it out. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
These things will run their course. There's literally nothing for her to do. I know it's mother's instincts to want to in this type of thing, right? You want to nurture your family back together. Your family isn't split. Your son finally, became the man he needed to be and told his father that, you could have done better as a dad. And any half good dad goes, yeah, probably could have. But I did the best I could with what I had. And as that your son gets older, he'll understand more about the struggles of the things that decisions parents have to make. And their family will grow. It's a perfectly natural part of family evolution. Your son needed to be able to express his disappointment and how he felt he was raised in order to move past it. It's a good thing. Right? He wants to get rid of that resentment, and you can't get rid of that resentment unless you can express it. This is one of those things. Time will heal the wounds. Those stories, this is now the process of healing those. Those will now become battle scars and stories later, right?
Yeah.
They will become stories that you laugh over campfires and things, right? Because what else are you going to do with it? Once you get past the resentment, what else are you going to do with it? You're going to laugh at it because you know what? You survived. You became a better human being. Hey, it's all right. It's in the past. We can laugh at it now. You can laugh at it now. Well, not right now, but in the future, you'll be able to laugh at it. And it won't be that long. He will mature quickly, especially after he gets this out of his thing. So your family is on the way to patching itself up. You don't have to do anything. It's on its way. Now, if your husband took it really badly, that's a different question, But my guess is, even if he took it initially badly, he'll understand that it needed to be done over the course of, and these things. It is still the path that needs to go down. So there's nothing you can do except be there for your husband as he deals with the emotions of this thing. Right? Would be my suggestion. And if your son if he needs you, but your job isn't to play referee. Your job is to play support staff for the people you love. Okay.
My wife can't seem to stop throwing away my daughter. The daughter is 3, by the way. Things and lying about it. And it has gotten to the point that I feel betrayed and can't trust her anymore. How do I deal with this situation? I think she needs counseling. This is serious.
Yes. Well, and this is a 2-woman relationship. So is there some resentment of some form that's at play here? Just like any family relationship, right? So it's likely that someone is feeling slighted and they're lashing out. At 40 years old, though, by the way, this is unacceptable behavior. So there is that. I might have a little more sympathy if they were 21, 22 and dealing with all this stuff for the first time and trying to deal with stress and and a relationship and a 3-year-old daughter and trying to navigate that. This I have a little more sympathy for it, right? It's still not acceptable behavior, but I have a little more sympathy for the struggle the person is going through. At 40, I don't really have much sympathy, frankly. That's just unacceptable behavior, and yeah, and he likely can't be trusted, and it might be time to have a new living situation.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, so I don't know. Because you already feel betrayed and you can't trust. And so we don't know how long this has been going on, but my guess is it wasn't just yesterday. So I don't know. It's time to go stay with your mom for a few days would be the traditional response to that, and see if the person can get their head straight. In the olden days, that's what you would suggest. Go stay with your mother, your sister, or something for a few days or a week. And let the person sit with themselves for a while. But I don't know. That's the best I got on that one, other than it is unacceptable behavior and you're just going to have to make a decision. Because at 40, I don't have much sympathy for it.
A very little sympathy for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, go back to the top. Maybe there's a bipolar trigger or something. Maybe the extra noise of a toddler is oversensing somebody and they're bouncing on some form of mental illness. That's always a caveat to deal with, but it needs to be dealt with. It's still unacceptable. It needs to be dealt with, but it's a potential. Mm-hmm. It is a potential that your wife has now hit a trigger that she wasn't aware of. Toddlers are noisy and messy, and someone might be a little more OCD than they realized. And, so it could actually be a mental health issue. And with that, I would have some sympathy on, but you have to deal with it, and you have to deal with it now. It's not something that you can take time with. Yeah. Okay.
My boyfriend mocked me with a racist gesture. What should I do? Okay, now background. She was making fun of him for his dance. Apparently he can't dance very well.
Well, yeah.
And then he made the slant eyes with his fingers.
Okay, well, let me put it this way.
And mocked her.
Okay, so you both mocked each other, but now you're all really offended because it happened to you. If you want to pull the racist thing out, mocking a white person who can't dance is just as racist as another thing. We just don't treat it as such. I'm not going to get into the reasons, but we just don't. If you want to actually sit down and think about it, it is. Because the reality is, you should never mock anybody who's expressing their joy. Who cares if it looks like someone having a seizure on the dance floor? So what? They're out there on the dance floor having a good time. So what if they look stupid? And no, you shouldn't be making, those kind of suggestions towards each other. You should be supportive of each other. Now, there is some caveats, times and places you're hanging out with friends and drinking and, insulting each other. But if you're going to engage in that type of behavior, you have to be prepared for it to come back towards you and accept it. Otherwise, people aren't going to invite you back to the party. You got to be able to take what you give. That's part of the social contract you signed by participating. So on this one, it's get over it. That's what my suggestion is.
Okay. Mom's boyfriend played a cruel prank on her. How do I explain this is not normal? Well, I think he may be getting senile. He's 78. He should
Okay, so
know
wait,
better.
your mom's boyfriend, the 60-year-old mother, and her 78-year-old boyfriend, he played a cruel prank. Were they doing it for these super social media things, or is he just routinely a prankster? And this one just went over the line. There's some background that we actually kind of need to know,
Okay.
right?
Sorry.
Well, no, it's just because in the modern world where people make, even old people out there making TikTok videos, it could be a TikTok video gone wrong, right? Without us really knowing. And that actually could be what's considered cruel about it. They made a TikTok video out the thing. Something the prank itself was especially cruel. Is that, doing it to pushing it to TikTok was cruel? We don't really know. How cruel was, and different people have different definitions of cruel. What you and I, me and the boys would consider cruel is vastly different what you and your sister would, right? Yeah. So these kind of things, it's hard to know. And does your mother think it's cruel, or did you think it was cruel? Your mother may be perfectly used to these kind of pranks and gets her own back later on. And so I don't know. Depending upon, is it normal? In some relationships, yes, it is normal. In some relationship, it's not. It's a sign. It's a red flag. You're just going to have to know more. And the question is, how does your mother feel about it? Not really you. I don't know what's cruel. Okay. What do we have next?
Parenting.
All right.
We promised our son an iPhone if he got an A in class. He didn't. Should we still get him one?
Well, probably not. But what you shouldn't do is set these kind of things as, I dislike the reward punishment system for grades, because then it's not just the reward, it's a punishment if you don't get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your decision to get him a phone or not a phone should be based upon his overall effort in school, not necessarily his ability to get a grade in a particular class that maybe he struggles with. Maybe the fact that he got a B is a huge accomplishment for him, and you have just, undercut it. You took a class he was struggling with, and you said you gave him a goal of an A, but maybe that goal of an A was an overreach, an unrealistic goal.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ask a D- kid to go to an A in a semester or a quarter.
Yeah.
He's going to have to work hard to catch up. And so if he had gotten a B, if you had left it as the general goal, hey, show me a great improvement in your grades, and we'll think about getting you an upgraded phone. That's a better plan for the long run
than an A, for heaven's sake.
Well, and maybe it was going from a B to an A, and okay, and he didn't do that. All right, that's a different question, right? So again, we don't know. That's why I don't like using these to begin with, because if he's giving the effort that you wanted, then the results will come, whether they came this quarter or next semester or next year. The results will come. It's the effort you want to reward, not the result.
I see. Yeah.
All right. So what's next?
Keeping your kids off social media, right or wrong?
It is neither right nor wrong. It's what's right for you, your children, your family, in your situation. That's the answer. There is no single answer.
Okay. It all depends on the child, I think.
The child and the family, and the family environment. I never restricted my children's use of these things. Now, granted, this is 30 years ago now, but I figure they have to learn to live in this environment, and so restricting them from that is going to hinder that, right? They're going to come into an adulthood that will have a more mature environment that they won't understand. I'd rather have them understand that environment from the very beginning, understand its dangers and its pluses, and then get bored with it by the time, and so they can learn how to use it properly. That's the whole kind of point. But I wouldn't actually suggest other people use that strategy. Right? These had kids who shared rooms, and so there was never all that much privacy. And so, and so the amount of trouble they could get into was communal trouble, right? It wasn't individual trouble. It was kind of communal trouble that they would get into. So the dangers were different, and those dangers are different for each family. Each family is going to have to make its decisions. And so it's not right or wrong. It's you just making an active decision to raise your children how you want. Okay.
17-year-old daughter vaping. They're very concerned because they already talked to their daughter about this. They talked about her friends who did it. They thought that they were all set, and now she did it anyway.
Yeah, 17-year-old was going to do the taboo thing. Imagine that. That's kind of the problem when you overly push against these things, is you actually give your child a tool of a rebellion. You give these something to use to rebel. And in this particular case, that's kind of what you've done. You've given your daughter a tool to rebel, and that's what she's doing. What do you do about it? And my first suggestion is stop giving her money to buy it. That, let economics take its course. She's 17. Even if you could stop her for now, it's only for now. So you set the things, no vaping in the house, make her step out on the porch, that kind of thing. And you don't have to be happy with it, but she's dang near an adult. What are you actually going to do? That's the problem. And the harder you push against it, the more it's going to be her rebellion thing. And my philosophy as a parent was to avoid that full-on rebellion at almost all costs, because that's the most dangerous time. I never wanted them to stop listening to me. And when they're in full-on rebellion, they're stopped listening to you. So my suggestion is, whatever you decide to do, is make sure you don't make them stop listening to you, because they may still choose. She's 17. She's gonna choose what she's gonna choose. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
My daughter gets terrified if I call my husband's name in our house. Now, she's like 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
and she calls his first name,
Mm-hmm.
like to come to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
or, can you come help me?
Okay. Did you happen to use at some period of the time the father as the so-called heavy? Is the father the one who punishes in the house? And so she's internalized this, and would be my suggestion. Right? Mom doesn't want to say no, so dad says no. So at some point, and some kids are more easily wigged out. One of my children, you could just look at them funny and they and so so it's not always some big huge thing. How the toddlers are; they can overreact to everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, my suspicion is that dad is the one that says no. Dad is the one that has to do the discipline of the house, and so now that child has internalized it, and so you may want to even out the disciplinary duties. Would be my biggest.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you like children in general, or do you only love your own kids?
Well,
I like children in general.
Well, those are two different questions, right? I guess liking children in general and loving your own kids. Yeah, you only love your own children, or the children you accumulate. You don't love the child in Topeka, Kansas, doesn't mean you don't like them. It's just there's no way you can love all the children the same way you love the children you are responsible for, or you have gained responsibility for. There is, right? Clearly there's a difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, clearly.
And now,
Yeah.
are there people out there who don't like children except their own? Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Are there people out there who pretty much love every child on earth? Yeah, there's probably a few of those. There's some of those as well. But my guess is they still love their own children differently. You know? There's people who do great work for children, great personal sacrifice. But if they have children, my guess is they love children more than they, or at least differently than they love all these children they help. Okay.
How can I help my son who's obsessed with the military guns, gives off incel vibes? What's incel?
It's a stupid social term to insult young men who don't have partners. One, stop buying into the political discourse of the day. That is the very fact that you use that term, and the term incel means you have bought into this same political dispute of the day. And my suggestion is that you and him are going to need to step outside of that together. Because that whole thing, this is just an insult for people who are different than the people who came up with this, right? It's just a way to insult a group of men who are essentially socially inadequate, as socially awkward.
Well, that's like almost every teenage boy I've ever known.
Essentially, yes. Until they find somebody who civilizes them. Yeah, that's pretty much how this works. That's how it's worked for centuries. But yeah, because until they find someone that they want to spend their life with and they learn to straighten up. That's generally how these things work. But now they get insulted. And so how they have no incentive to straighten up. And so they're essentially a bunch of Peter Pans running around. But they've essentially been forced into it. They are the disposable ones. The ones no one has to care about. And
well, these are our young men.
Yeah.
Come on now.
And we do it to our young women too. This is just how it happens to our young men. Let's be clear. Society is a evil, cruel, brutal mistress, right? It's a lot of, we talked about it here. Mother Nature, human nature, nature itself is a cruel mistress. And women do it themselves. It just manifests. Society is not pleasant to anybody who finds themselves on the outside of the current social norms. Right? Whatever those current social norms happen to be, if you find yourselves on the outside of it, society is not pleasant to you. Right? We know this throughout history. It's a truth. It just is. And at the moment, those are who are outside. And let's face it, in the past, our young men have always been disposable. We just used to dispose of them in mass in wars. And we no longer do that in mass. This is the disposable generation when we don't send them off to war. Think about history. Every year, societies all around the world would send their young men off. Half of them would come home. There's a consequence to that. There's a consequence to not doing that culturally. And we haven't accepted that yet. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Look, God, yeah. Work is better. Let's go talk about work.
Okay. Ridden sick with flu. Boss says I should work tomorrow. Now, she sent in a written email to the boss. I'm sick today. I'm sorry. I can't come in. And he just kind of, yeah. Well, tomorrow when you come in,
No, well, here's the thing. She probably equivocated in her email. She did not say, I am sick. I will not be in tomorrow. right? And so he was trying to use that wiggle room she left him for pressure. So my guess is resend the email and just inform him you're not going to work. This isn't a right? This is an informational email that I will, essentially, be nicer about it. Plug it into one of the AIs and have them rewrite it for you. But this is to inform you I will not be in work for the next couple of days while I recover from the flu. And and if your company has an HR, CC them in it.
Should I text my coworker after getting fired about her being blamed for it?
I wouldn't, but if the company is going to fire you, why do you want to work there? Is always my question, my point on these things. Spend your energy elsewhere, right? They didn't come to you for your side of the story or deal with it, so they were looking for a reason to let you go. So, okay.
Work has asked me to do something I find completely unreasonable.
You have the right to say no, and they have the right to let you go, and then you move on to a company who doesn't ask you to do unreasonable things. It's the same answer. The only reason places get away with it is because people will do it. So you can say no, right? And if it's something completely unreasonable and you live in work in a large corporation, you can say, all right, I will do this, but I need this in written. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday. He says, yes, his boss wanted him to ask him to do something that the lawyers of the organization told him not to do. And so he sent it up to, at this point, he had a union. So he included his union response in the CC and all eventually going away. But so there are things you can do if, your organization. But I tend to not work for people who ask me to do things that are unreasonable. So
Just avoided it.
I don't avoid nothing. Why do I want to work for some place that asks me to do unreasonable things? Just on a fundamental level.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do that? I'm going to work for reasonable people. So anyway, all right.
How do you keep going when you've really screwed up?
You just keep going. There's no other answer, right? You just, well, that sucked, and you move on, and you just keep going. Like Dora on Dory in Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming, You just keep going. Yeah, you want to climb under a rock, but part of what makes you stronger is going through these type of things. Sometimes it's not the mistake. We all mess up. We all screwed up. We've all made mistakes. Some of us have been responsible for shutting down silver mines because because we make a mistake, right? You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars at minimum. And what are you going to do? Just keep doing your job. It was a series of unfortunate events, right? Set of circumstances that couldn't be accounted for. You're technically the one that's responsible for it. Yeah. Maybe you signed off on something that shouldn't have been signed off on. It happens. Did anybody die? Not good. Then it's just money and the world will move on. So you just keep going. You just put your pants back on and keep going. All right, what's next?
Coworker never throws away her food snacks in the office. She's got piles of food, leftover food on her desk.
Yeah, well, just be good. Just be glad you don't live with her.
Oh, yeah.
That's my suggestion. Don't overly worry about it because it's not really your business. Trust me, the cleaning crew will complain soon enough. And yeah, So let it be. Unless you actually have to directly deal with it and it's a direct issue, then don't deal with it. It's my suggestion. Okay, what's next?
The CEO of my company asked me to remove the name of tools we use from
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's probably not completely unreasonable. You know, it's a way for hackers to socially engineer a way in. You know, there's a in the security business. There's a phrase we call a concept we call security by obscurity. If you don't know what systems you use, then it's harder to break into them. So it's not really an unreasonable request. So, okay.
Coworker said, "Do you even know how to ask a real question?" He doesn't know what to do with this.
Well, okay, you're getting some feedback from your coworkers that your questions aren't clear. So maybe think through your questions a little better. That's what he's telling you. What are you asking me exactly? Right? That's what he's telling you. You don't know how to ask questions. Come on, get it out. Shorten it, be clearer, whatever it is. You're not being clear with your questions. So if you have a question, make you dang sure what it is. Because otherwise you're just wasting his time. He's trying to figure out what the heck you're wanting. And maybe what it is you're uncomfortable asking the question, so you kind of hem and haw and you kind of, or whatever, for some reason you don't directly ask the question, you kind of indirectly ask the question, and your coworker's going, "Would you just spit it the freak out?" Now maybe you have a speech impediment of some form, and your coworker needs to get more accommodating. But my suspicion is you don't know how to ask a good question. So get better at asking a good question. Now, you could actually go, if you want to ask, "How's this for a question?" Walk up to your coworker, say, "Hey, I appreciate you being willing to tell me this. Can you give me an example of, because I'm not understanding, so can you give me an example of how I ask bad questions?" That's a good question. Right? It's clear, concise. He knows what you want. It's an answerable question. So try that. How's that?
That's a good one.
All right. So we got some intimacy questions we'll run through here.
Okay. Do straight women experience an urge to be penetrated? Well, yeah.
Well, I suppose.
You get the baby fever and every blood starts going there, moving around down there, and you start having feelings. So come on, yeah.
My understanding is even non-straight women have the urge.
There you go.
I'm just, not that I know, I could go ask somebody, but I suspect it's
But I heard this gay comedian once.
Yeah.
She goes, "I like penises, just not on men."
See, there you go. There's your answer. So yes, women experience urges just like everybody else. Okay.
Okay. My wife suggested I look elsewhere for sex. Okay. She has 3 kids under 8 years old.
Yeah.
And she's tired.
Yeah.
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 And she just had enough of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to solve that problem? That's actually an easier problem to solve. Figure out a way to, I'm not going to say help more around the house, because that's not what I mean. Give her a way to relieve as much stress from her life as possible. What she is, she's overstressed. She's tired. And so if you can help relieve stress in some form, manner, shape, or form, start doing that. And as she unstresses and has more energy, then that part of her life will re-energize. She clearly has a history of it. So, you've got 3 kids. She's not afraid of sex. So recreate the conditions where that can be reintroduced All right, what's next?
Don't mind giving blowjobs, but hate come in mouth or on face. Where should it go? Well, you can hold it in your mouth, and then you have tissues nearby, and you spit it into the tissue.
Chest and belly work just fine. Okay,
My girlfriend's
misandry.
misandry kills my sex drive.
Well,
My girlfriend's misandry
yeah,
kills my sex drive. She's constantly male bashing.
yeah, and then it's it's that culture thing again we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's caught up in it, and so the only thing you're going to have to do is find a way for both of you to step outside of that. But that's not a long-term. That's not a workable long-term relationship unless she, refines herself, because she's sending vastly mixed signals, right?
Yeah, she is.
Okay, what's next?
What's a sexy, respectful way to ask for her to lick my balls?
There
There isn't, kind of really.
no, you can do it one, kind of a discussion if you're having a discussion about sex outside of the course, or the other way to do it is when you're engaged, you bring it up while you are actually actively engaged in the active intercourse, and then people's at that stage, people's disgust factors are reduced, and therefore they're likely to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do.
Oh.
Just so you know. Okay.
My girlfriend rejects me a lot, but also wants me to take more initiative. He's confused.
As she would be. Yeah. Well, tell her you can't stand the rejection. Tell her the rejection hurts you, because it does, and so you can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have this dichotomy where you want me to try more often, but reject me in the high percentage of the time. It's emotionally damaging. I'm just gonna have to tell her that. And if her response is a shrug of the shoulders, then you know where your relationship stands. It's not even about the sex at that point. It's about that she doesn't care about your emotions, your feelings. Just saying. Now, do I expect that? I don't know. I suspect that she doesn't realize how much it hurts to be rejected that often.
She's 35.
Yeah.
I think you might have a favorable response.
Yeah. All right. We are out of here tonight. We want to thank you for joining us. Please be with us next week. And please remember to love everybody.
Good night.